Welcome back to another episode of A Closer Look. My name is Ruby Summers. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing at Northern Stage, and I'm here today with two of our actors from our upcoming production of Disgraced. Welcome, and why don't you introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Olivia Gilliatt, and I am playing the role of Emily.
Hi, my name is Amar Srivastava, and I'm playing the role of Amir.
Great. And can you just talk a little bit about your characters and whether or not you've worked at Northern Stage before?
Sure. So I'm playing Emily, who is married to Amir. We live on the Upper East Side of New York City. I'm a painter, a visual artist, and recently I've been working in Islamic forms, a tiling tradition or stuff sort of based on it. And Emily's had a pretty good run of things so far. She's been reviewed by Jerry Saltz from New York Magazine. I mean, this is fictitious, obviously, but Jerry Saltz isn't. And this is sort of we're at a turning point in her career when we start this play. And I'd say maybe also in Amir's.
Yeah, I agree. So this is my first time in Northern Stage. It feels great, and it's great to be in Vermont/New Hampshire. So my character, Amir, he is a corporate attorney in M&A, mergers and acquisitions. So he's in that world of finance and law. Of course, he started out as a public defender, and he moved away. He went into corporate law. Of course, there's a lot more money in corporate law, especially in mergers and acquisitions. And so, you know, he certainly is not a caricature, but he's driven. He's sort of that New York finance, you know, I know he's a lawyer, but he's that finance lawyer, you know, overachiever, and he works very hard. He's working in a very prestigious law firm when this play opens, and his dream is, or his immediate dream, is to make partner, which is, of course, is a huge thing. And we live in a very fancy place, as Olivia said, in the Upper East Side, and it's a great play. I think it's a great role, but that's where the character is coming from on the surface.
And can one of you just speak to what this play is just about more generally, what the main conflict is?
Ladies first.
So most of the play takes place at a dinner party, and it's kind of a great setup for, so Amir's trying to make partner, I've got a big show maybe coming up, and we're at dinner with a couple. One member of the couple, the wife, is also a lawyer at this particular firm, and her husband is a curator at the Whitney. And the play's very much about where people come from and what their perspectives are and how these can clash, especially when we all want the same thing and it's in conflict and there's a lot of booze. So Jory, the wife, is an African-American lawyer. Her husband, Isaac, is culturally Jewish. And Amir is an apostate Muslim from Pakistan. So there's just sort of stuff that comes up and things get said that can't be unsaid. Yeah. In the course of the evening.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is I think it's also about, you know, the classic story of immigration in America. And so my character was born in America, but his parents came from Pakistan. And so there's another key character in the play, Amir's nephew. He has a nephew. And that's also an important dynamic or part or element of the story, is the sort of the clash, the culture clash, especially after post 9/11, for you know, people who practice Islam or Muslims, and so that's also an important you know, element of the story.
And what drew you all to this play? What made you agree to do it or come audition?
You first.
You know, I had a vested interest as an actor. I thought Amir is just a great challenge to play. I just love the challenge of this character. But really, it's just, I just love the story. You know, I love writing. I love literature. I've always loved literature and, of course, plays. And this play, I think, is a very very thought-provoking play. It gets ugly, and it takes me as an actor, it takes me to places where, you know, it's hard to or clarify, but it's just, I really love the challenge of going to certain places where I, Amar, normally never go. And I think that's what this character does. But the story is just a fantastic story, as Olivia said, and I think it's very poignant and very telling, and I think it's you can see that because it's produced a lot throughout the country, you know.
It was the most produced play in America in the 2015-2016 season, and it's still getting done.
Still getting done,
everywhere.
Yeah.
I got to see this production on Broadway and didn't like it. It was exciting and riveting, but there are definitely things that happen in this play that are controversial and that I found myself personally really kind of, it drummed up some stuff for me and I was upset by it. But I think it's also a testament to really good writing.
Yeah.
These characters have many dimensions, and actually I got to play the same role in Denver last spring. And even though I was apprehensive about doing the play and what I felt like it might ultimately be saying about its characters, there's this beauty to this very, very tight and taut drama that you just kind of get to inhabit the character, and then you just get on the boat and ride, and actually it kind of does the work for you.
Yeah.
Emotions are really high, things are really at stake, but you don't have to manufacture anything as an actor in terms of, well, psychologically, I guess because we see me doing this and then we see me swimming in the next scene, I must have done X, Y, and Z in between. It's all in one place, it's all pretty much at the same time, and you just get to go on the journey, and that's really a gift.
Yeah.
And I know that you said that, how do I want to phrase this? That you didn't like this play, and therefore, obviously there are some challenges when you're coming into these roles as actors with characters who you kind of have to grapple with and figure out how to have empathy for them. Can you just speak to that process a little?
Sure.
That's the challenging part for me, at least. When, you know, just when you're playing a bad guy, you know, when you're playing, which I often do, you know, you can't, as much as Amar, me personally, wants to judge and sort of detest this character, you've got to find something that you can kind of hold on to, something that, as you use the word, empathize. You've got to find something. It just makes it easier. And then, you know, it helps me inhabit the character and do it truthfully and honestly and organically. If the whole time I'm thinking, oh, this guy's, I can't do this, this guy's so evil, you got to get past that. You really have to get past that to do this. And so, you know, without giving away much of the story or the plot line, I've had to do that, and it's been also challenging. I do love the play, as I said earlier, but there's some parts of it that I am critical of, and I have to navigate through that and figure out what I can hold on to. Otherwise, I feel like the work I'll do will be false, and it won't be justice to the playwright. Yeah.
I think these characters are really beautifully drawn, and I think they're complex. And I don't think there is anybody who's a bad guy or a good guy. I think everybody in this play is well-intentioned.
In this play, yeah.
And circumstances on the outside make them behave sometimes in ways that are regrettable. And I think, hopefully, in addition to finding empathy for our own situations as characters and for everybody else's, getting to be on the outside of it and getting to be in rehearsal, it really, I think the story is about compassion, and I think the story is asking us to look at a set of circumstances that I certainly have judgment around and see what might drive a person to it, and even if I feel that they've been driven too far, that know that really can happen. And I think this play is challenging us, without giving too much away, I think this play is challenging us to really reflect on what are those external circumstances where society drives us to do things. So there's a lot of compassion involved in it.
And I know that you said that you obviously have both been critical of this. I know a lot of people in Middle Eastern and South Asian communities also criticize this play. Can you just speak to their criticism?
Well, I think that I can understand their criticism. Like, I get it. I know what they're saying or what their concerns are. I would, just to use a word that you just said, I would challenge folks that are critical to sort of go deeper, because I feel this playwright is doing, my personal take on it is the playwright is actually sort of doing the opposite of what their concerns are or their fears are. Like, I think that's what artists do, is they just sort of push the boundaries, and they really challenge us. And so it's, I'm having a little trouble because I don't want to give away too much of the story. But I guess all I would say is that, so to try to accept the challenge that this writer is presenting us. Me personally, it was difficult at first. I mean, honestly, I'll tell you my cycle. I first loved the play, then I didn't like the play, and it was for sort of what you're alluding to. And so I'm slowly, getting out. I'm slowly having so much compassion for Amir, and so I would just simply say to, accept the challenge that this playwright is offering, and see what you come up with.
I think we can safely say that the controversy stems from, or the complaint, the critique, is that the Muslim characters in this play, the South Asian characters in this play, are represented in a way that feels stereotypical of all of society's worst fears in America about jihad, about all sorts of things that come up, and the issue, I mean, in reading what the playwright Ayad Akhtar has said, is that he sees himself as culturally Muslim. He draws on people like Philip Roth and Saul Bellows, who call themselves culturally Jewish. So they might actually write and stand in critique of their own religion, but they certainly identify with it and come from that background. And so I agree. I think it's right that artists get to push boundaries, but the complaint is that because it's one of the most produced plays in the country, and there are so few other representations of Muslim people on stage, Muslim men front and center as the protagonist of a story, that since it's sort of the only representation that we're seeing, is it the best, or is it the most, I don't know, accurately representative? So if there were like a whole body of work, then it could kind of stand in that. And since it's on its own, I think it just means it's good to talk about this.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the key. It's a great way to just initiate dialogue. These issues that they're dealing with in this story, they're serious. They're really, it's really deep, and I think that's why I'm really drawn to this story, this playwright, is because it gets us talking. I don't think we can solve anything by being, so polarized, And so I think this is a great way to do it.
Yeah, and kind of going in another direction, this play is also a lot about the American dream, and what that means for each of the different characters. Yeah. Can you just speak to what role the American dream plays in it? Because ultimately, we're all striving for that.
Well, what I was just thinking about was what you were saying before about immigration.
Yeah.
And how much of this play is about that. For me, looking at it from Emily's perspective, it's really looking back at the legacy of colonialism and what that means. But I mean, I think with the current immigration debate going on in Dhaka and all of that stuff, I mean, to me, that is like the legacy. We are a nation of immigrants. We're basically all a nation of immigrants, and that it's all tied to, well, why did we come here? And whenever we did, what does that mean? And so I think it very much is about the pursuit of happiness, whether it's property or title or getting into a new economic stratum. And I think all of the characters in this are trying to do that.
Absolutely.
They're all coming from somewhere and trying to get advanced.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think that I don't even know what I could add to that. I mean, all I could say is that my character is, again, since he's in that sort of finance and being an attorney in New York City, I would suggest is a little different than being an attorney in other cities. It's very high intense, and so he's in the middle of it, and so that American dream is propelling him. It's driving him. And it's capitalism. That's what this country is based on, is capitalism. And so, he's in it. He's really in it. And it absolutely is a key component or factor in my character.
And I feel like it's all over this play, and it's changed from, like, I don't know, the 1950s ideal of like a Cadillac and a house in the suburbs.
Yeah.
Now
yeah.
it's a large apartment on the Upper East Side, and it's
Yeah.
the way that they talk about the European countries that they
Yeah.
visit, and the cheese that they eat and the wine that they drink. The places that they visit, the people who they know, the books they're reading.
Yeah.
There's a sort of like cultural currency of being in the know.
Absolutely.
They're just as much a marker as like having, your name plaque on the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then finally, I would just ask, I know you already spoke to this a little, but what is the big takeaway you're hoping audiences, bring with them and even bring to the talkbacks? I know we have a few of those.
I think for me, it really is, I living in New York, I have some friends that are writers, and I know, speaking to them, how when they get critiqued, it can really, it's very difficult, to live with that, when you put your life's work out there and it just gets slammed. And so, like, I am going to just go back to an earlier question you had and just say that I would hope that folks of the South Asian and Middle Eastern communities who happen to be Muslim, that they could, be less critical and understand sort of what this playwright is driving at. And it also doesn't have to do with folks that are just, practicing Islam, any religion. Because religion also, we didn't really touch upon that, but religion's a big factor of this play too. That's why, as you said, you have these four different characters, and they all have different religious backgrounds. And so that's a key component of the story too. So I think that the playwright is also kind of challenging us to look at, what we feel about our own upbringing, our own religious beliefs, and he's just examining it and exploring it. And so I would hope people could look at that a little more closer,
Yeah, I hope people come away, I mean, my own experience of it was I didn't love the play. I had questions about it. I think it's safe not safe, but I think it's great to question.
Yeah.
I think it's great to leave questioning, and I think it's really great to get to examine challenge our own biases and challenge our own assumptions about people of all persuasions, whether they are similar to us or not. And I think this isn't like a finger-wagging play. It's not a political, culpability play, but I actually do think, for me, those are the questions that it raises, are like, what are the legacy of what my people, for lack of a better term, what has been their responsibility or part in this, and what have other people's parts in this been, and how do we change that, or how do we just become more mindful about it?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining me. I really like talking to you all. You all are very fun.
Thank you.
And then if you would like tickets to Disgraced, you can find them at northernstage.org or by calling 802-296-7000. We also have a free spot-on conversation on Sunday, March 4th with an associate professor of Middle Eastern Studies from Dartmouth, who will just expand on the production and on post 9/11 relationships with the Muslim American community. So we would love if you could join us.